Okay guys, finally Champions League time again. So, we're not the champions this time. We kind of didn't live up to it in that final against Real Madrid. But since then, we've become world champions for the second straight time. We're the bookmakers' favourites. I am confident going into the season with a very settled squad. But we're going to need to be on our game from the start in this group. 2 tough games to get things underway. Cologne at home, Arsenal away. We need to be switched on, especially with a lot of domestic fixtures in and around these first 2, but I believe in you guys. Let's get off to a good start in this group and make our way through to the knockouts of the Champions League again. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 191 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well and coming up. In today's episode, it is the start of the Champions League season for 2037-38. We play our first 2 games of the group stage against Cologne at home, and then we do travel to the Emirates to take on Arsenal in and around that. We will also finish off the domestic league season here in Iceland, and as well as that, we are going to check in on HK and Fylkir down in the Europa League group stages. So if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But this is what the odds do look like for this upcoming Champions League season, which we did have the group stage draw for at the end of last week. If you did miss that episode, just getting everything ready for this week where we do play the group stages, I'll leave a link to that one over in the top right corner. And as you can see on screen, last season we were joint second favourites behind Chelsea alongside Manchester United. This time we are outright favourites at 450, despite the fact that Real Madrid did end our back-to-back triumphs in that final on penalties a week or so ago now. But going into this season, as I mentioned in the intro, with quite a settled squad compared to what we did have this time last season, we are going into this one as the favourites and hopefully can go one step further and reclaim our crown as the champions of Europe. But before we do focus on the European side of things for the next couple of episodes, a quick update on what has happened domestically since we did do that setup for this new European season at the end of last week. As you can see, we've played a few games since around about when that draw did take place before those last few fixtures in August, and thankfully we've got through the most recent run of those league games undefeated, and that does mean that with 4 games to go, which we are going to play in between the 2 Champions League games that we will show you guys in today's episode, we are pretty much on the brink of winning yet another top division title here in Iceland. We are 9 points clear of HK, and HK have only 3 games left, so they would only join us on points as things stand. And with our goal differential, things do look very, very likely that we will be lifting the title, only needing 1 point from those last 4 games. So it does look like we are going to pick up a domestic treble, of course, because HK did knock us out in the Malka Bickerin a little while ago now, but it's going to be a domestic treble to go alongside that win in the FIFA Club World Cup, all things going well, just needing that 1 point from our last 4 games. But as you can see, we have already qualified for the Champions League next season, and what that does mean is we have had our transfer budget revealed to us for when that does open up here in Iceland in February of next year. And if we make our way over, we have £47.77 million available to us. That's the highest transfer budget we've had here at Völsungur for a little while, and as well as that, we've still got 183,000 per week of wage as well, so we can definitely do some damage with that money going into the start of the next European season. But we'll probably sit on that cash for a little while and get through this European season first and see where we do need to improve. Probably one area I can already identify is probably left wing, someone who is just a bit of an upgrade on Ognar Mizkic, who has been a little bit hit and miss over the last little while in this series. But we are about to take part in our first game of the Champions League group stages. We are this season in Group B alongside Arsenal, Cologne and Famalicão. We take on our 2 strongest fellow teams in this group in today's episode, starting off with a home game against Cologne and followed up by a trip to the Emirates against Arsenal. If you're wondering why this season we are starting off with 2 games in the group stages, one reason I'm moving house this week, so there is only going to be 3 videos on the channel, so we're bundling these in, so we have 2 games in each episode from the Champions League group, and as well as that, of course, we did get knocked out early in the Molkebikeren, but can't do our usual cup final alongside the first game of the Champions League group stage in today's episode, so that is what is going on. But we start off today with those games against Cologne and Arsenal, and first up it is a trip for Cologne here to Husavik to take us on at My Arena. They currently find themselves 6th in the Bundesliga, albeit still very, very early days in the European leagues apart from ours here in Iceland, and they are a 4.5-star reputation club. A few familiar names there in that team. They've got Gabriel Madrid at left back. He's a player who's been floating around the Bundesliga for a little while now. He's probably the most notable name in that team. Van Leeuwen at centre back. It was quite a promising player a few seasons ago now on left wing. They've also got Telles Magno, who I believe was a former RB Leipzig man who he might have taken on a few seasons ago in the same team as Gabriel Madrid was in. So a few ex-RB Leipzig players, it does appear, there are in this Cologne team, but it should be a team which hopefully at home we can get the better of and then set up quite a big match in the second game of today's episode, taking on Arsenal at the Emirates. In terms of us going into this game, we have no injury concerns for the first team. Robson is out with a groin strain, but he wouldn't have been starting anyway with Carl Vollen in goal. So thankfully, everyone is fit and available, and we'll come back shortly and play our first game of this season's Champions League group stages, taking on Cologne at My Arena. And here are the team sheets for this first game of this season's Champions League group stages. There we are, our usual 4-3-3, and we have our best 11 and bench available for this one. Hopefully, that remains the case for the second game with a few domestic games in between now and then. There are Cologne looking quite similar to what we did see before on the club info page, and hopefully we can get off to a good start here at home. And 2 minutes into this one, we have our first highlight. Starts off with a throw-in inside the final third. Berger can't quite link up with a teammate, but quite kindly does receive the ball back. Gets a slide tackle there on him, but thankfully we do keep possession. Agatigere finds a little bit of space here inside the box. Down the right-hand side, tries to put a ball there into the mixer, but there you can see Cologne's quite strong defence there on their left-hand side, but that's a poor clearance there from their goalkeeper, and we might find some space here on the right-hand side, and we do eventually through Radenko. Krollo plays that one back in for Agatigere. He gets clattered really, really late there, and that could be a very, very gifty penalty for us to start off this one. A really unneeded challenge that late after Agatigere had passed the ball. No doubt it was a foul, and inside the box, that is a real gift of a penalty there from Cologne, and a good chance here for Adam Saki to open the scoring after 4 minutes. Buries that one in the bottom left corner, and that is a dream start really to the group stages of the Champions League this season. In this first game, as I said, pretty needless tackle there with the ball being quite a wee way away from Agatigere. Once the defender got to him, brings him down, penalty. Saki tucks it away and makes it 1-0 Völsungur. And we go all the way forward to the 32-minute mark for our next highlight in this one. So things have slowed down since that opening penalty, so that might prove quite costly here for Cologne, but we are on the attack yet again and again. Radenko Krollo finds some space there on the right-hand side. We do lose possession, but then Cologne with a bit of an iffy clearance. It was deflected, and we do keep the pressure on here, keep possession inside their half, albeit Filippo Donelli briefly gets back into our own half, but now we are back inside theirs and try and get something going this time. Down the left-hand side, nice ball there from Berger for Saki, but a really good save there from Sharif in goal for Cologne to tip that high and wide, so a good chance there to make it 2-0. Dumbia puts this one into the mix of it. Basaroge just puts that high and wide. Still 1-0 Völsungur, 10 minutes left in the first half. And it is half-time in this first game of the Champions League group stage this season. Very, very good first half, even though our goal did come early on from the penalty spot, as I said then. Quite a needless foul as well, but we are playing pretty well. Cologne yet to hit the target, so hopefully we can grab a cushion goal here in the second half. We get it back underway with a 1-0 lead. And we go all the way forward to the 69-minute mark for the first highlight of the second half. Cologne have done nothing so far in this game. We have been well and truly on top of them. You'll see that shortly when the stats do come up, but we pay the price here for not putting the dagger in with all of our statistical dominance. They put that one far post and Nascimento out jumps Ramadan. There you can see the stats. Cologne very quiet in this game. We should have scored a second goal. We haven't, and Cologne get one back. It will be Costa coming on for Doumbia with a red heart, and all of a sudden 1-1 with 20 minutes left. And only a few minutes off the back of that first substitution, we are going to make a few more here. We have Basaro Gay down to a red heart. Elaine Basicki will come on for him, and also Mizkic down to a red heart. Alagard to come on for him as well. We'll also just change our attack a little bit to try and grab this goal to put us back in front, 1-1 with 15 minutes left. And we've gone forward now to the 84-minute mark, still locked up at 1-1. This would definitely be some drop points. What we're going to do here is put our wing backs on attack. We'll also move Bruno Costa to a central midfielder on attack as well. We've already gone to an attacking mindset, so hopefully we can get on the front foot here. We'll also berate the boys and try and just get something out of them, because this would definitely be drop points the way that we have been playing in this game. But just that one goal so far from the penalty spot, a little bit disappointing, and Cologne making the most of that chance that they did have from set piece. But we try and get something going here with only a few minutes left, and Alagard will set up Bruno Costa. Two players coming off the bench. It's a really good finish there from Bruno Costa into the top right corner, and immediately we will just start to pull things back a little bit here to make sure that we do hold on to this one goal lead. It would definitely be a deserved win, but we just want to make sure that we do just seal things down a little bit, go from attacking to positive. But that's a good little indication there that when we do need to go full attack, it can work out, and we finally grab a second goal here against a stubborn Cologne team. Nice ball there from Alagard. Really good finish that from Bruno Costa, and we take a 2-1 lead with only a few minutes left. And it looks like there's going to be plenty of late action in this one. Another highlight here at the 90-minute mark, but Nascimento will head that one away there for Cologne, and they do keep possession here despite the efforts of Bruno Costa, fresh off the back of grabbing us that goal to put us in front. And here's another chance here for Adam Saki, but can't quite get on the end of it. They gift it to him, but he puts it wide. That would have absolutely sealed it, an open net, but Adam Saki puts it wide. That could have been the cushion goal to wrap this one up, and we have another highlight here late on. Alagard hit a far post. That one comes off the top of the crossbar, so we're creating some good chances here late in this one, since we have gone just a little bit more attacking. Maybe something to consider going into the remainder of the group stages in the Champions League this season. Another corner, this time Basicki will put that one over the bar. We only have a few seconds left in this one, enough time for Cologne to take the goal kick. They pump that deep, head that back out to the right hand side. We'll see if anything else does happen in this game, and thankfully we get out of that one with a win. It was looking a little bit sketchy there from the 69-minute mark, but in terms of stats, hard to argue that we didn't deserve a win out of that game. Just that set piece goal we did concede with 20 minutes left, which did give us a little bit of a scare, but thankfully Bruno Costa off the bench came up big for us there in the 88th minute, and we pick up a 2-1 win here at home to kick off the group stages of the Champions League this season. We'll just go forward. I'm pretty sure Arsenal were handing out a bit of a pumping there to Famalicão in the other game in our group. We'll tell the boys that wasn't the best performance. We played well, but certainly need to be a bit more efficient in front of goal, and Arsenal did pick up a 2-0 win over Famalicão. So that means that coming up in our next game today, it is going to be an early top of the group clash as we do travel to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. But before then, we've got to play 4 games to wrap up the league season, just needing 1 point to secure the title. And as well as that, we'll also do a recap of our HK and Fylkir got on in their first games in the Europa League groups. And we have gone forward a few weeks off the back of that first Champions League group stage game. We are about to take on Arsenal, but a bit of stuff to recap before we do get into this big game, probably our toughest one potentially in our group this season. First off, we're going down to the Europa League to check in on the other Icelandic teams. HK, a rough start for them. First up, they had to host Liverpool. They got a red card at the 38-minute mark, which no doubt would not have helped them from there. Liverpool picked up a pretty routine victory there, 3-0 at the HK Arena. So HK currently bottom of the group. Also interesting to see there, Fabio Maliano getting on the score sheet for Saint Etienne as they pick up a 3-2 win against Kolabara, albeit they did nearly blow that one late. But HK, their second game in the group stages, is a trip to take on Fabio Maliano's Saint Etienne over in France. That might also be a tough task for those guys, but hopefully they can perform a little bit better there than they did at home against Liverpool. And down to Group E, where Fylkir reside, and unfortunately they've got off to quite a rough start in their group, a game which looked quite winnable for those guys at home against SV Vade out of Austria, and they suffer a 1-0 defeat off the back of an 89th minute goal to Fylkir, and a little bit of trouble early on in that group, especially because their next game is a trip to take on Napoli in Italy, and Napoli coming off the back of a 2-0 win against Red Star, where another one of our former men in Nicola Zimmerman did pick up the first goal. So our other Icelandic teams today are taking on some former Völsungur players, but 2 losses there for the other Icelandic teams to start off the Europa League campaign. But going over now to check in on how we finished off our domestic season. Just a reminder, we needed 1 point from our last 4 games to pick up the league title, and thankfully we picked up 4 very comfortable wins in those last 4 games. So in the end, we did pick up the league title off the back of that 6-0 win away from home against Fylkir, who did pick up a red card there early on in the second half. And from there, 3 more wins, we win the league title by 18 points in the end over HK, who finished the season a bit roughly as well. So in the end, we actually extended the gap there on HK to finish off the season, but we pick up 64 points, 98 goal differential as well, only 1 draw in the entire season, which was against HK, and that means we have group stage Champions League football yet again next season. Next season, HK, though, will be in Champions League qualifying. Keflavik are the team in the Europa League. They just got the better of Fylkir for that spot, so that's going to be interesting. Next season, Fylkir will drop down into Conference League qualifying alongside Nuts KR, and just rounding things off domestically with the result from the Cup final, seeing as we weren't in that for the first time in a little while. And the team that did beat us in the earlier rounds of the Mulkabicker and HK, they went all the way and did defeat Breidablik by 2-0 in the final, so that doesn't actually change anything in terms of who qualifies for what in Iceland. If Breidablik won that, they would have got that Europa League spot for next season. So in the end, HK there, I think, doing us a bit of a favour. They pick up the Mulkabicker and are already in Champions League qualifiers for next season anyway. But coming through that most recent stretch of games, going into this next one against Arsenal, unfortunately, we do have a few injury concerns. 2 injuries. The most notable one, though, is to Basaro Gay. He has a pulled thigh. He is out for 1 to 6 days, so should just miss this one game coming up against Arsenal, but that is a pretty big injury for this one game. But we do have a pretty able backup there in Elaine Basicki, so hopefully we're going to be okay going into this one. It also means that Narek Voskanyan will make his way onto the bench as we do face our toughest test, I think, in the group stages this season, travelling to the Emirates to take on an Arsenal team fresh off the back of a 2-0 win against Famalicão on the opening match week. A quick look at Arsenal in the Save Universe. 4.5-star reputation club. Mikel Arteta is still in charge. They currently find themselves 4th on the Premier League table. Hopefully we can pick up a good result here, but obviously with that injury to Basaro Gay, this could be a little bit tricky over in England. There's a few good players in this Arsenal team. Isaac at right back in particular, Paton and goal, and it looks a pretty similar team to the one that we did take on not that long ago in the quarterfinals of the Club World Cup. But we'll come back shortly, and hopefully we can pick up some points here away from home, which should set us up well going into the next episode, where we do take on Famalicão twice in a row. But it's a top of the group clash, Arsenal versus Völsungur from the Emirates. And here are the team sheets for this trip to the Emirates. First up are Arsenal. Again, they look pretty similar to what we did see before on the club info page, also in quite a strong run of form as well. So this could be a very interesting game, as I mentioned earlier. Basicki comes in for Basaro Gay and Voskanyan onto the bench, but some points here away from home should put us in a good position for that double coming up against Famalicão. And we're straight into half-time in this game. There were no highlights there in the first half here at the Emirates. Quite an even game in terms of shot. The possession is slightly in our favour. We've had the slightly higher XG, despite the fact we have only hit the target in 1 of our 6 shots. Arsenal have hit the target in 4 of their 6. So if we can be a little bit more efficient in front of goal, hopefully that will go a wee way to us getting a potential win here away from home, which would be quite big. Miskic out there struggling a little bit on a 6.4, but not too disappointed with that half. I think what we're going to do here is tell our boys that they do need to be a bit more efficient in front of goal, start hitting the target more. We'll see if we can get any improvements here early in the second half. Otherwise, Mizkic might be coming off yet again, but not playing well, but somehow still not in that bad of a position. 0-0 here as we are about to get underway in the second half here at the Emirates. And we go forward to the 54-minute mark. Finally, something happening in this game, and a nice ball played over the top there for Adam Saki. Will take that around Piton in goal. It was Bayer with the assist from the free kick inside our own half, and with the first highlight of this game. It has taken a while, but we get on the score sheet. It was Denali with the free kick. Bayer one touch, puts that ball over the top. Saki with too much pace there for the Arsenal defenders. Takes that around Baton, and just like that, we grab a 1-0 lead here against Arsenal. And only a few minutes off the back of that opening highlight and goal, we're going to make our first substitution. Lassana Doumbia down to a red heart. Bruno Costa, who we did have to give injections to going into this game. He did have a little injury. I think he might have recovered from that anyway, but he will come on. And that's our first sub used, 1-0 with 35 minutes left. And a few minutes off the back of that first substitution, Ognjan Mizkic hasn't quite kicked on as we were hoping to start off the second half. Alagard will come on for him with a half hour left. And only a few minutes off the back of that previous substitution, a free kick there for Arsenal. They get open at the far post, but thankfully that header does go over the bar, and it is still 1-0 in our favour. Yeah. And going forward a couple of minutes off the back of that previous highlight, starting to get some stuff happen now, but this time not a good one. Bruno Costa, maybe we should have left him on the bench. He has picked up a red injury, a potential arm injury, so hopefully he can play through that injury when he does get past this game, but that is a bit of a wasted sub now. Voskanyan will come on for him. Bayer to the box. That's all of our subs used. Still 1-0 up with 20 minutes left. And with around about 5 minutes left before injury time in this one, we have another free kick. Of course, we did score from one of these before. Bayer playing the ball over the top for Adam Saki, who is on the ball and gets us here inside the final third. Some good 1-2 between him and Jonathan Berger. And now Basicki with a nice ball over the top for Berger right on the edge of the box. Can we grab one more goal to seal this? It's a shot there, not too sure who that was from. They do clear it, Arsenal, but only into the path of Radenko. Krolo puts this far post in. This time Alagard hits the target, puts that in the top left corner. Of course, in the previous game, that one did come off the crossbar, but this time he puts it in the back of the net, and there is the cushion goal that we were looking for in the previous game against Cologne, and this time we do get it, and that makes it 2-0 here at the Emirates, and this will be a very important 3 points away from home. And a couple of minutes off the back of that second goal, we are back down the Arsenal end here for a corner of their own. Denali does deal with that. We were just about to start time wasting as well, but it hasn't quite kicked into effect before this highlight, and Carl Vollen gets a hand to that. Can't keep it out of the back of the net, albeit the goal from Oliveira is going to be checked here by VAR. Do we get away with one? And can we just relax a little bit more going into these last few minutes? Indeed, that is the case. Thankfully, he was offside, so we do get away with one there slightly. I did think Carl Vollen potentially should have made that save anyway, getting a hand to it, but he is just a stride offside, and that goal will not count. We now go into 5 minutes of added time, just starting to get on top of Arsenal here stat-wise in the second half. Not our best performance yet again, but this time a bit more efficient in front of goal, and we pick up a 2-0 win at the Emirates, and that is a great start to our group stage campaign here in the Champions League this season. 6 points from our first 2 games, especially with a double header against Famalicão coming up, and you'd expect us to end up on 12 points after 4 games off the back of that next episode, but that is a good win away from home. Played a bit better in that second half, of course, with nothing happening in the first half, and goals to Adam Saki and to Christopher Alagard off the bench do secure us a 2-0 win. Of course, that injury to Bruno Costa, we'll just need to check on that off the back of this one. It is an arm injury, and it does look like he's going to be out for 5 to 7 weeks. Whether he can play through that or not remains to be seen, but we now do have a 3-point gap at the top of our group, with Cologne being Famalicão, as you would expect. So a good little gap there, as I mentioned, and we can hopefully grab a break on the rest of this group in those next 2 games against Famalicão out of Portugal. But a good start to our group stage, picking up wins against Cologne, and in that most recent game, 2-0 at the Emirates against Arsenal. And going forward, another day off the back of that win against Arsenal, and time to do another Europa League update before we do end things for today's episode. And a very good bit of news here as HK bounce back from that loss against Liverpool and pick up a 1-0 win away in France against Saint-Etienne. That is a big 3 points, and that will keep them firmly in the hunt to try and make their way into the Europa League knockouts. Against that is a good win for them there against Fabio Mariano's new team, and that means that they have gone up to second in Group C after 2 games played, and behind Liverpool, who it does look like are going to run away with that group. But down in Group E, unfortunately, things not quite as good for Fylkir. They suffer a 3-0 defeat there in Italy. It does look like those guys might struggle to end up in European knockouts this season, albeit that could change if they do pick up results against Red Star in their next 2 games. That they suffer a 3-0 defeat, yet another goal to one of our former players there in Nicola Zimmerman. But Fylkir do look to be struggling, but HK a lot better there after picking up a win away at Saint Etienne. And of course, if we go back to the Champions League and check out all of the groups, we are in quite a strong position, picking up wins there against Cologne at home. That one was a little bit closer than it probably should have been, and then we pick up a pretty solid 2-0 win away at the Emirates in top spot in the group. We'll just make our way down so you guys can check out what is happening in these other groups in the Champions League so far this season. We'll also bring up those bottom couple of groups so editing Shaun doesn't have to get any extra pay today. And this is what those last 2 groups do look like, but we are in quite a strong position going into those next 2 games in a couple of days' time, where we do take on Famalicão home and away, but in a good position, as I mentioned, after those first 2 match weeks. But that will do it almost for today's episode. The other thing to bring up, unfortunately, Bruno Costa cannot play through that injury to his arm, so he's going to be missing for a little while as the backup to Lissana Doumbia, but that means that Boscanyan can keep his place on the bench when Basaroge does return. But that will definitely do things for today's episode. We start off the Champions League group stages with 2 good wins against 2 good teams in our group, and that should set us well for the doubleheader coming up next time against Famalicão. If you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. As I mentioned earlier, next up we've got the double header against Famalicão. That is in a couple of days' time tomorrow. I've got to go out to the new house and get the official handover for the keys to that thing, and also we're getting a bed delivered, so there's going to be no video tomorrow, but the day after that we'll be back with that double header against Famalicão, and hopefully by the end of that one we'll have 12 points from 4 games, and also HK can hopefully keep themselves in that hunt to get out of their group in the Europa League. So in a few days' time we'll come back. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.